This one always breaks my heart because some people don't heal the relationship before it's too late, and then somebody's gone, and then they have major regrets. So, can you talk a little bit about that and healing before it's too late, the relationship?
Yeah, so I would say, as is often said, tomorrow is not promised. And sometimes in death, a part of what can heighten grief is when we have a lot of regrets. The things we didn't say that we wish we had, the things we said or did that we never apologized for. So to not assume that time is endless, really that tomorrow is not promised. And so, if there is an apology you've been sitting on for months, for some of us years, to make the phone call. And even if they aren't ready to receive your apology, at least you will know that you shared it, that you said it. So for those for whom it is not too late, I would say, seize the moment. And even if it's a long time ago, that repair can be really beautiful because some people have been holding it for years.
Welcome, everybody, to the Life is Now Do It While You Can show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a life coach for women over 50. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Tama Bryant, and she's a professor of psychology at Pepperdine University. And she's the author of several books, including the most recent, Matters of the Heart: Healing Your Relationships with Yourself and Those You Love. So, welcome, Dr. Tama. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so happy to be with you and this collective of women over 50, which I call our Jubilee season. So I'm excited about it.
Oh, you're so sweet. I love that. Well, today we're talking about healing family relationships. And I know in your book, you talk about healing your relationships with yourself and others. Can you share with us why it's so important to heal our relationships with ourselves and others?
Yes. We have found, and when I say we, I mean psychologists and other mental health professionals and researchers have found that our relationships really predict a lot about our mental health. And each of us can imagine the difficulties we have gone through in life and the difference it made when you had family members or friends to help you through that process. So the people in your closest circle can either be a buffer and a protective factor, or they can be a source of your stress, and in some cases, a source of your trauma. So for us to have healthy relationships with other people, help us to face the challenges of life without becoming permanently undone by them. And then having a healthy relationship with ourselves, the way we think about ourselves will affect the decisions we make, the choices we make, the ways in which we protect our peace, or the ways in which we abandon ourselves. And so these are crucial aspects of our wholeness and our wellness holistically.
Yeah, and it always breaks my heart because and full disclosure, I've had my own family relationships that were broken or fractured. But so many of my clients have shared that they have a fractured relationship with somebody in their family. And that could be anybody from siblings to aging parents or their adult children. And it always breaks my heart because you know, we don't have a lot of time in life, and so if we don't heal those relationships, we may never get that chance to. So, if a woman is stuck in a place of where she's in a painful family relationship where someone's not talking to her, how can she take the first step in healing the relationship?
Well, I would say to actually start with healing her own heart. Because when
Mm,
we're not approaching these difficult moments or conflicts from a place of our own healing. We can often abandon ourselves in the hopes that people will choose us or validate us or apologize to us. And so, people, including family, love at the level of their own healing. And so when they are not whole, if I don't take time to tend to myself, then I can end up in a vicious cycle where members of my family are continuing to dismantle me, dishonor me, disrespect me. And I can keep signing up for that with the false belief that until they recognize my worthiness, then I am unworthy. So we want to actually take pause to recognize that these persons are human beings, and the way they have thought about us, the way they have treated us, does not always reflect our value. Sometimes we can think that if they abandoned us or abused us or underestimated us, that that must be the truth of who we are. But in actuality, it's the truth of where they are. And so I would say before you try to heal the relationship, first try to heal your own heart.
So, what I'm hearing you say also is our self worth really comes from within. It's not
Yeah.
from the external, right?
Mm.
But also,
Yeah.
what I'm hearing you say is the boundaries that we have to create with those family members too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's important to know that as it relates to family relationships, there is a whole range of options in terms of the level of access that we give people. We often think about it as this, what I call false dichotomy or false choice, where either we're all in or we're all out. So we either say, like, I'm going to spend all my time with them. I have to call them every day. I spend every holiday with them, or I eliminate them altogether and there can be no communication. And while each of those are options that some people choose, there's also a variety of ways in which we can connect and relate to people, including setting up a boundary about I'm willing to come over or I'm willing to engage as long as these particular behaviors do not occur. And then if I set that kind of a standard or rule, then I have to be willing to enforce it. So if I say, yes, I'll come over for the holiday, but if I am talked to in this particular way, or the name calling, the yelling, the cursing, the humiliation, I'm not going to stay. And so then if people engage in those behaviors, I have to honor my word. So then it may be I'm not totally cutting them off, but I'm engaging with a standard. I'm engaging with a requirement, or even as saying how much time we give people. When you have difficult relationships with your family members, you want to ask yourself the question, do I really want to spend every holiday with people that dishonor me? And so even if you say, like, well, I don't want to totally cut them off, it's still, we can still set a time limit on it, so that I still have time to nourish myself and to spend time with people who actually know how to care for me in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's so important. Can you share? I thought that was a great example of setting that boundary before we get together. But
Mhm.
I think I know a lot of people can have a hard time enforcing it, like saying, okay, that boundary was crossed, so I'm going to leave now. Can you explain why it's so important to enforce that and follow through instead of just letting it slide? Because I'm sure a lot of women feel funny, like, oh God, now I have to enforce it.
Right, absolutely. Well, that saying is we teach people how to treat us. So people make predictions based on their knowledge of us and their experience with us. So if I say that something is unacceptable, but then I accept it, then I'm giving them the message that you can continue to treat me whatever way you want, because I don't have the strength or the courage, or the sense of safety to be able to set my boundary. And, for those who are listening who find themselves in that place, I would say instead of beating yourself up, maybe you want to set a different standard. So, I would not encourage you to establish a rule that you cannot follow. So instead, what you may say is that if I am over there for dinner and I feel like they're getting into a place where it's disrespectful, I may choose to get up and go to the kitchen because I don't want to engage in that conversation. I may say, I'm going to switch chairs and go sit where the kids are sitting because it's just more fun with the kids. Or I may say, I'm going to go pick up something for dessert. So I give myself a timeout. So you want to set a guideline that you actually are able to enforce.
Yeah, and it's funny when you said that, I got this vision in my head of it's like you're giving yourself that second to pause and
Yes.
not be reactive and just take a step back and process what's going
Mhm.
on.
Right.
So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
so important.
And I would also say it helps if there's like an ally in the family. Let's say, the grandmother or grandfather, like no one's going to challenge them and they're like out of box, they're just out of order, they say hurtful things. But you don't feel culturally or religiously or personally like you can cut them off. Is there someone at the table that you can catch eyes with? Sometimes we just need someone else to validate that this is ridiculous, right? This is
Yeah.
outrageous. And so, that kind of reality check or that support can help us to get through these difficult moments.
Yeah, because sometimes you need that ally to realize. Because you sometimes you feel like, "Oh my god, am I crazy? Am I
Right.
the only one that's, like,
Yes.
experiences?"
Especially because often everyone else is acting like it's no big deal. So either one, they really believe it's no big deal because they have been raised in this environment, or they also are anxious about, challenging this person. And so they just laugh or are quiet and go along with it.
Yeah. So now what happens if, let's just say, she draws the boundary and she feels like I have to leave. I can't stay in this
Mhm.
toxic environment. And she says, you know what, I'm going to excuse myself. And she leaves. But
Mhm.
that creates a rift in the relationship where now the person who she needed to remove herself from is mad at her and won't talk to her and is like, "That's it, we're done," right? And so
Mhm.
and it's a sibling or it's an adult child or it's an aging parent. So
Mhm.
how can, as time goes on and the healing begins, or she tries to heal from it, how can she open the door to a healthy relationship with that person?
Yeah. So I would first say to take some time to get settled within yourself so that you're not responding out of this frantic desperation, which rewrites the script, right? So the way that person has responded may have left you feeling like I'm wrong, I'm bad, when actually you were trying to protect yourself and in some ways protect the relationship, because if you stayed, you may have said some things that were very hard to erase or to take back. And so, if you desire to reconcile or rebuild the relationship, you would start with an acknowledgement of, I understand you're upset because I left. And if and when you're ready to have a conversation, I want to talk to you about why I left and, what are the possibilities for us going forward. And when you do that, there are some people who, out of curiosity or respect or care, will want to hear you out. And then you all have the difficult conversation. There are some people who will say, no, you left and that's it. And so when someone responds that way, you don't have to go into a pleading or a begging. A part of it can be their own psychology. Sometimes people have abandonment issues, and so for them, like staying, even if you're yelling, cursing, crying, they prefer that than the walk away. So for them, you leaving cut deep, and it's hard for them to move past that. And if they're in that place, then your response would simply be, I understand where you are. And if at any point down the road you're willing to have a conversation, my door is open, but I will respect your request and not continue to ask you about it. And then you let it be, because you have extended yourself. You're willing to work through it, but it takes both parties to work through something. And if someone is not willing, then you have to release.
Mm, yeah. So, in this conversation, though, I think it's really important to share that this isn't a conversation of you did this, you're wrong, and blah, 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 because that's just going to create like headbutting, right?
Well, at some point, there does have to be a conversation about what happened and how it made you feel. Because uh, if you don't speak about those things, then the centerpiece will be your leaving, and your
Mhm.
leaving is not really the start of this. So in their mind, the reason why the problem started is because you left the dinner, and that's
Oh,
not
I
really
see.
the start of the problem. Yeah.
Right. Because they're not seeing what's really
Right.
going
What
on.
led you to leave? Yeah.
But it's also in the way that someone brings it up, right? It's not
Mhm.
you can't bring it up in a way of you did this, you did that. Like I liked what you said of
Mhm.
when this happened, this is
I
how it
felt.
made me feel,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yes. Because there is a difference between intention and impact.
Mm,
So, some people who hurt you weren't trying to hurt you on purpose. So an example of that are people who think truth telling is more important than caretaking. So they may have said something that was hurtful, but in their mind, if they believe it's true, then for them that trumps everything. It's like, well, I just told the truth, right? But they said it in a way that was very hurtful. So, it may be, I know, an example that comes to mind, with young people having various dreams. And sometimes the parents or the adults not only they don't believe in the child, but they want their child to have safety and security, right? So I'm thinking about a client where her family was all about, and this is before our current situation, but her family was all about getting a good government job, right? So they
mhm.
live in the DC area, and that's the way to have stability and security. And so, like anything outside of that is seen as a risk, right? So then, but they have said very hurtful things as it relates to her dreams, right? So, then it would be an understanding of, while it may have not been malicious or based in a mean spiritedness, it may have been in their minds. They're trying to protect her because they care, but yet what has been said has been very hurtful. So then we can create space for, even if you came from a sincere place, I still need to say like that this really hurt my heart.
Yeah, and just being open and vulnerable about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So can you also talk about because we're not in a relationship with ourselves, right? It takes two to tango. So, can you talk about also taking responsibility for your part in the relationship?
Certainly. I think this is especially important when we talk about adult children. So sometimes people want to be in the permanent child role, where, that no matter what they say or do, the parents have to show up for them, or the parents have to own everything. But there is something about transitioning into adulthood, where you can start to see your parent as more than your parent, right? That's a person. and they were a person before you got here, and they're a person who can be hurt and disappointed and have their own stress that has nothing to do with you. And so, a part of maturity is beginning to relate to parents or elders in our family from a standpoint of being able to do perspective taking and to respond to people as whole people, not just in terms of their role in our lives.
Yeah, that's so important. That's so important. So now, in a family relationship, if you're trying to heal a family relationship and you start trying to reach out to the person to heal the relationship, right? But they're just not responding. They refuse to talk to you and they're not willing to meet you halfway. What can you do? Because I'm going to use the example of a sibling, right? Is a sibling that won't talk to you,
Mhm.
and you've tried reaching out. What can you do in that situation to heal the relationship?
When someone is unwilling, there's not more you can do except to find out if there is something they are waiting for. So sometimes a sibling is like, you want to move on, but there's the thing 7 years ago you still haven't apologized for, right? Or you took my money and until you pay it back, we're not going to have a conversation. So you want to find out they may not be hearing your words because they're waiting for an action. So to find out, is there something that I could do to remedy it? And I would say before you ask them to reflect on if they've already told you, because sometimes people have told us what is required and we've ignored it and we keep saying like, why can't you move on? And they've told us why.
That's going to take a lot of self reflection and being willing to face, maybe what you don't want to face, right?
Yes, yeah.
And that could be tough.
Right. Right. For many of us, apology is hard, or taking corrective action is hard. Many people just want to pretend like nothing happened. There were some like memes going around social media talking about, how your spouse apologizes without apologizing. So, and some of them they'll say, like, what do you want to eat? Right. And that's their way of saying sorry, but the person may be waiting for you to actually say that you're sorry.
Yeah. And how can you talk a little bit about the forgiveness aspect?
Yes. So it's important for us to unpack what we mean by forgiveness, both in terms of the person who is apologizing and the person who is considering forgiving. Because sometimes people falsely believe that forgiveness means you'll never think about it again. And so that's just not the way our neuroscience works, right? Is, unless you were very young or it was like very physically overwhelming, most things people will remember. And so sometimes the person who apologizes will hold that over someone's head by saying, well, you said you forgave me, so why are you bringing it up again? Well, they're still trying to rebuild their trust and they're still hurt about what happened. So being hurt doesn't mean you didn't forgive. It means you're hurt and not sure that you can fully trust them in the way you did before the violation occurred. So we also want to recognize that in most cases, forgiveness is not instant, it's a process. So sometimes people will say with an attitude, well, I said I'm sorry, right? And it's like, just that one sentence is not going to totally heal someone's heart. So you're
Yeah.
going to have to earn it. You're going to have to rebuild and when you really have grasped that you have hurt someone, then you will be more patient and willing to engage in that process. instead of operating with this entitlement that someone must forgive you or that someone must act like it didn't happen.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I was thinking that the whole time you were talking, I was thinking it requires patience, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
being understanding because feelings are hurt and they don't just go away just
that's
because you
right.
apologize. Oh
Yes.
my goodness. Well, can you also talk about uh this one always breaks my heart because some people don't heal the relationship before it's too late and then somebody's gone and then they
Mhm.
have major regrets. So can you talk a little bit about that and healing before it's too late, the relationship?
Yeah, so I would say, as is often said, tomorrow is not promised. And sometimes in death, a part of what can heighten grief is when we have a lot of regrets. The things we didn't say that we wish we had, the things we said or did that we never apologized for. So to not assume that time is endless, really that tomorrow is not promised. And so, if there is an apology you've been sitting on for months, for some of us years, to make the phone call. And even if they aren't ready to receive your apology, at least you will know that you shared it, that you said it. So for those for whom it is not too late, I would say, seize the moment. And even if it's a long time ago, that repair can be really beautiful because some people have been holding it for years and can be freed by you acknowledging what you did and apologizing for it. For those for whom it is already too late in the sense that the person has died and you never apologized, what I would say is there are two exercises we often do therapeutically. One is writing the person a letter. Another one is the empty chair exercise, where you just pretend the person is sitting there and say what it is that you wish you had said, that you want to say to them. And, emotionally or psychologically, there can be a release with that. If you're a spiritual person, depending on your beliefs, there could also be a sense that that message was received by them in some ways. And then another way we can approach it is corrective future action, meaning I like to say, pull the wisdom out of the wounds. So I recognize how hurtful it was when I did that. So going forward, how am I going to behave differently? It may not be with that person, but with other people, with me holding in my heart, not wanting to repeat the damage that was done.
Ah, I love that. I love that because then it's not staying in a place of if the other person has passed away, it's not because people can go into a place of beating themselves up and
Mhm.
then going into depression. And so the actions that you shared are proactive in helping them move forward and forgiving themselves, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. So, being able to have compassion or empathy for yourself about, what made it hard for you to own it, what made it hard for you to apologize, what made it hard for you to change. And, I like to say an explanation is not an excuse, but it does help you to understand yourself, right? So then I
Yeah.
can see myself with more compassion and grow and heal so that I can make some other choices.
Yeah. And then moving forward, heal other relationships. I
That's right.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. Dr. Tama, can you tell our audience how to find you?
Certainly. So my website is drthema.com, DRTHEMA. And through my website, you can connect with me on social media and also to get my books, the latest of which is Matters of the Heart, Healing Your Relationship with Yourself and Those You Love.